Good evening, Andrew.
Hi. Is Bob joining us?
I don't see him here this evening, so I would say no.
Okay. Well, if he enters, we'll include him. Otherwise, we'll call to order the meeting of the Shelburne Select Board on Monday, April 24th at 5:30. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for attending. And welcome, Margaret and Terry. Margaret, do we have you had a chance to review the minutes of the last meeting?
I have, and as I found one thing that I wanted to correct.
Okay.
Under the police rules and regulations manual section.
Yep.
I don't have that right in front of me now. There's a sentence that I would like to correct, and it says, Margaret commented that while she was sure the police department was inclusive as to race and gender, the words in the manual need to reflect that. And the thing that what I said actually, and although this captures a sense of it, I think these things are important. I was particularly speaking to gender identification, and I said I appreciated very much that the manual used they or officers. They used the plural.
3 weeks late, that
And that I hoped that they could even the few ones that were left that said he, she, that said he instead of they could be corrected, because it seemed like those were maybe just oversights.
Okay. Terry, do you have a sense of that repair there?
Yes.
Okay. And would you convey that to Greg?
Yes, I did convey that to Greg
Oh, okay.
last week.
Great. Is that satisfactory to you, Margaret?
Yes.
Great. Do you want to move to accept the minutes as amended?
Yep. I move that we accept the minutes from the Shelburne Select Board of April 10th, 2023 as amended.
And I will second that. And if there's no further discussion, we'll bring it to a vote. All in favor, Margaret?
Aye.
Andrew is aye, and the motion carries. And we're on to department liaison reports. Margaret.
I really don't have anything new. The senior center is about at the same place, and Cherry knows more about the town hall than I do. I'll leave her to comment that, but I just want to also say that there's another board meeting. We're working on a date now for the library, the Arms Library Board of Trustees. And so that should probably be the first week in May or the second. And Terry, I don't know if there was anything else from town hall.
I don't have anything to report. No, thank you.
Just a few small updates. I don't have anything from Greg on the police department. I do have a question, Terry, about our upcoming merger stuff. That one thing that's been sort of weighing on my mind, if we both towns go into this police merger together, are we pretty much committing going forward to having the same level of police services?
It's really a question for Greg, but I would assume, yes, that it would be the same level that we're receiving now.
Right. No, I was just a little concerned that if Buckland, because of their budget woes, decided to go for lesser policing services, whether they could do that under a shared agreement, or whether they would essentially need to be policing at the same level as us in order to benefit from Greg's services.
Yes, that's the only way that this agreement would pass, is if both towns agreed to the terms as presented.
Right, but that would hold going forward in future years too.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. No, I just wanted to, well, I'll follow up with Greg on that just because you know, I think that's one of the potential challenges of a two-town system is you both have to pretty much agree to the same level of service, you know, going forward. Regardless of whether you fall into budget difficulties. Well, anyway, more on that when I've talked to Greg. The village task force is continuing to meet, and they are starting to work on this multi-town consulting project that Jessica has gotten funding for. And I have said that I would serve on that task force if needed, since nobody else stepped forward to do that. We'll have more on the pavilion project when we get to old business, so I won't comment on that now. And the sewer commissioners are meeting tomorrow, so we'll have more to do there. The sewer commission is contending with many challenges, including hiring a new chief operator and considering how its administrative services are going to be met in the coming year, as well as finishing up the water main, the sewer main project over on the Buckland side. And I guess we've recently encountered a new sewer repair issue in our own construction project. And Terry, that's a $35,000 fix estimated?
Yes.
Okay, well, we'll be talking more about that tomorrow, I guess. That's all I have for liaison reports, and Bob is not here for highway. Terry, you have some things to add?
Bob is here. He's just joined us.
Oh, great. Welcome, Bob.
Hi there, how are you?
Good. Do you want to update us on the highway?
Certainly. Spoke with Mark today. With the roads and everything drying up, they're just about done sweeping. They've been doing a lot of the roadside maintenance and cleaning. They've been doing a little work on the site for the pole barn and getting that leveled. They're putting it back further into the bank, going north on the site. So they're making that a little deeper and getting that prepped for being installed. He is working on the dirt roads. They've firmed up real quick because even though we had this nice rain without any frost, the roads dried out. And we're working on the side roads. You're going to notice that there's been tree crews in town. Jimmy Richardson has brought in Jim's tree service as part of his annual tree warden maintenance, and been taking down some hangers and other trees that have been in the way, and trees that are dying out that are definitely town trees that need to come down. So the highway department is keeping busy, and they're waiting for their new chipper. It's built, it's been in Michigan. We're not sure when it'll be delivered, but with the new chipper, it would help a lot of the cleanup. But besides that, status quo moving forward.
Great, thank you, Bob. I noticed the Buckland side, they were doing street sweeping today. Are we doing that also with that
We will
company?
be, and have been doing it continuously for the past month here and
Okay.
there, but yes.
And on the pole barn, just out of curiosity, are we then going to build like a cinder block retaining wall into the bank, or what?
How the foundation is set up, I'm not sure, but I'm sure there will be some form of stabilization on the bank on the back side, but I don't know.
Oh, okay, I just didn't know if that was included in the building specs for the thing that we bought, or if that's something additional that we're going to do.
That's something that we can do ourselves.
Uh-huh. And is the floor going to be dirt or concrete?
The floor is going to be dirt. To the best of
Okay.
my knowledge, is going to be dirt.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you. Anything further on your end?
Nope, just
Okay.
hanging out at the hospital.
Oh, well, we all wish you well, Bob, and
Yep.
hope that you get home soon.
That's the plan.
Good. And then thank you for zooming in from your faraway location. Terry, do you have anything on your end?
No.
Okay. One question I have on the town hall side, do you have any update on the elevator repair project?
Parts are on order. I was told 12 to 14 weeks. The last time I checked in, they had no word on when they would be received.
Okay. So it sounds like that's going to take a little while.
Yes.
Okay. Looks like we have no appointments, so going to old business.
Andrew, we do have a 6 o'clock appointment with the school committee.
Oh, okay. Am I looking at the wrong agenda here? Or is it just not on here?
No, it should be on the agenda.
That's odd. That's my agenda does not have that on it. But this may have been an earlier version that you sent out. I don't know. But is the school committee here?
They're signing on at 6 o'clock.
Oh,
Finance committee's here, but
okay. Oh, well, we've got another 15 minutes, so we'll power through the old business until they get here, and then we'll join them. So the A is relocation of Veterans Memorial at BSC. And I just wanted to update Terry that I did run into John Chadwick on the Bridge of Flowers the other day, had a little chat with him, and encouraged him to attend tonight. I don't know if he has or not. I can't see the whole set of tiles here. But I did mention to him that I have gone up and looked at the monument and rethought a little bit, and I wanted to share my thinking with you to see what your thoughts are. But now that that tree has been taken down in front of Town Hall, it looks more possible to me to put that memorial in front of Town Hall if that is the wish of the veterans. John sort of hemmed and hawed a little bit and wasn't sure if that actually was his primary wish. So I thought he should follow up with you a little more about that. But the question I have is, I guess that would have to go to the tree committee and to the board and to the contractors to see if we did that. That would mean not putting a tree back in that location. I don't know, because my thought is if we had the memorial there, it could fit next to the flagpole, but having a flagpole, a memorial, a tree, a mailbox and a fire hydrant all in that one space would be a lot. But without a tree, it could fit. And I had initially thought it was more of a Vietnam era memorial, but it's actually a memorial to all veterans of Shelburne. And in that sense, it seemed more fitting to me to have it be in front of Memorial Hall, because Memorial Hall is a war memorial. It's a Civil War memorial. And the memorial in Memorial Hall is kind of implicit. The wording on the monument actually makes it more explicit. But anyway, what are your thoughts on that? Does that seem possible to include in the construction project or the tree business? What are your thoughts, Margaret and Bob, on that?
Can I speak to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
John did come to see me today, but it seems like John and Les Chadwick are working on the same project, but in two different ways. Les had spoke to Lori Wheeler at the library about the possibility of placing the monument there to the left of the steps, I believe. And Lori is waiting to speak to the library trustees about that possibility. We're still looking for someone to move it. We have inquiries into two different vendors. And as far as not placing a tree, it's a possibility, but Brock and Jimmy Richardson went to the nursery on Friday last week and have tagged the 7 trees to be put in their designated locations. So it would mean finding another home for the tree. And I don't know how much room there will be by the time they finish reconfiguring the ramp, the railing in that little garden area.
Okay. So there's already a tree been purchased for that spot then?
Yes.
Okay. John did express interest in the Pocket Park as another location, though I told him it was not a town-owned piece of land. So I don't know where he's going to go with that. But my one concern about the left of the library location is that that is also a potential spot for a bus shelter if we ever wanted to have a place for people to wait out of the rain for FRTA buses or other buses that come to that location. And I have spoken to the librarian about that some time ago, but not recently. So I don't know what your thoughts are about that.
I mean,
You asking me or Lori?
Lori. Or Terry.
Oh, Lori, you're here. Okay.
Oh, hi.
Yeah.
Oh,
Any
I
thoughts
was-
on that?
I was delighted to about the idea of having the Veterans Memorial here, because I think that people would, as they would at the town hall, be very likely to see it. And the bus shelter idea, I wasn't as keen on as maybe when we first talked about it. And I think it would look really nice. It would be, I think it would be fitting to be right there as well.
Yeah, the bus shelter is certainly not as aesthetic in terms of the overall look of the library, but it is very practical in terms of public transportation. So
It is, but we'd also need to do different staffing things as well.
Staffing
Yeah, staffing things.
for a bus shelter?
I just, what happens and what I'm worried about with just having a bus stop there, and I just worry about like people hanging out in it too much. Like maybe not waiting for the buses and things.
Okay. Anybody else have thoughts on the Veterans Memorial questions? Bob, Margaret?
I've been trying to think of another place, because I do still think that it's kind of overcrowded right in front of town hall. And I guess, do the veterans feel most strongly about having it more in the center of town there rather than out in that distant place?
Well, I think they're not, they've sort of felt like being up on that hill behind BSE is too distant. Whether the other locations we've thought about, which are the Cowell Gym and the Historical Society, those are less distant, but not in the downtown. So I don't know what their thoughts are about that. Have you talked to them about that, Terry?
They were hoping it would be along a parade route so that they could stop, pay tribute to it as they're marching bridge to Maine to Arms.
Mhm.
Lori also has her hand up.
Go ahead, Lori. You're muted.
Thank you. The other thing is that when Les stopped in here, he also really liked the idea of putting it out there. So just tossing that into the mix. Thank,
Putting it by the library, you mean?
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Well, where do we want to go with the bus shelter? I mean, the memorial question.
Well, let's just kind of kick this, and we're not in a position, Terry's waiting to get some quotes to move it. And once we get quotes to move it, so we know how, how much of a project it will be, and then we'll be able to go from there. But I think the library is not a bad thought. I know the Historical Society still might be interested in it. So, but in terms of honoring it on a parade route out of between the town hall and the library, I think the library would suit well for it and would get a lot of people to stop and look at it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And my second choice would be around the Historical Society. As long as that's still on the parade route. That's a really good point, Terry, that I hadn't realized, but yeah. So, and we haven't really talked about the bus shelter, so I think that might answer the question if we put the memorial there.
And are the veterans proposing to move this memorial? That was my thought, but or are they asking that the town move it?
They were asking, we haven't really crossed that bridge. First, we're
Oh.
going to get estimates, see if there's anyone willing to volunteer, a local contractor. We haven't crossed that bridge yet.
Okay. All right. Well, I like Bob's idea. We'll see what the estimates look like and return to the conversation. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
All right. Well, moving on to the pavilion project. Terry, do you have updates to share there?
Just the same information that you've received, Andrew. Unfortunately, it looks like the pavilion will not be completed by the end of this school year. There was a few setbacks with the contractor having COVID, then the March snowstorm, school vacation, and the delay in getting a building permit. So it looks like their goal is to have the entire building framed, and then they'll come back in the fall to put the roof on. But I have a meeting with the tech school carpentry class tomorrow, and I'll know more about that schedule.
All right. You probably saw my email, Terry, that I'm in class from 2 to 3, so I will not be able to attend if that's when Mike wants to meet.
I'm not sure if he's responded to your email or not. There was
Okay.
nothing when I left it this
Okay.
afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, I was disappointed to learn that, but I understand delays do happen. My main concern is that if the project is not complete by the end of the school year, that it be complete enough so that the fencing can get taken down, the benches, I mean, the picnic tables are brought back, and the site be usable during the summer months. Is he kind of on the same page with that?
I won't know until I meet with him tomorrow.
Okay. Well, if I'm not able to meet, then that would be the message I would convey to Mike.
Okay, I believe you did in your email. You covered all those bases with him.
Yeah. Okay. Bob, Margaret, any other thoughts on the pavilion?
Oh, the only thing is what I mentioned last time, which it wasn't really a joke, But when it gets so hot in the summer, if there could be some kind of a roof thing, whether it's a tent that we rent or tent top or tarps look so construction-y, but something to provide so people could actually sit there and be in the shade.
Yeah, we should certainly pass that along to Mike and see where they are by the end of the school year. Terry, the one other thing I had on the park project, I did forward a sketch to you and to Kurt from the landscaping department at the tech school. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that, or I have not heard back from him, so I don't know where we are yet with that conversation.
I thought the sketch was great. I think he alluded that it might be beyond their capabilities as landscaping students, but they're supposed to be coming out on Thursday to make another site visit, so we'll know more then.
Yeah. Well, my presumption there, and again, I don't know exactly what their capabilities are, but if we do recycle some number of those tree wells that are up at the highway department, I've proposed using 7 of them. Whether that's the final number or not, I don't know. And we obviously need to get approval from the Ancient Glacier folks too. But my presumption was that we would hire an excavating company, Eric Dean or some other like him, to install those tree wells and grade the paths and do the other kind of heavy work. And then, you know, if the tech school landscaping crew can do other things, that would be great. But we would need to sort of figure out with them what pieces of it they feel capable of doing. So I guess we'll know more when we talk with Kurt. Anything else on Pavilion, Terry?
No.
Oh, and you had mentioned the idea of setting aside $20,000 in ARPA funding. Do you want to talk about that now or wait until we get farther down the road?
I think it would have to wait until we actually got some estimates.
Okay. Well, moving on to, well, we are just about at 6 o'clock. Is our school committee folks here?
Seeing
see
one.
Jason, I'm not sure Julie's on.
Okay.
Andrew, I could deal with C under old business. pretty
Okay, go right ahead, Margaret.
Because there hasn't been any progress since the last time we discussed it.
Oh, okay. So West County Senior Services Board of Managers. No,
And we'll-
nothing.
I think we'll be returning to that after everybody's town meetings are over. Everybody
Okay.
seems to be busy about that, and I haven't heard back from some emails I've sent out.
Okay. And is that any new news on D, Terry, the Franklin Tech School representative?
No, the moderator would make that appointment, and I have yet to be notified of whether or not the individual that was interested has contacted him.
Okay. Well, it being 6 o'clock and Jason being here, I don't see Julie. I thought, Jason, you could take a little time to, you and I spoke a little bit about the 3 warrant articles that the Mohawk Trail School District is putting on the warrant. We had a fairly lively discussion about them at a joint meeting with the Finance Committee last week. And I think we all felt like we didn't understand them very well yet. So I thought maybe you could give us your take on why they're being brought forward this year and what the nub of the articles is all about.
Yeah, sure. So I guess first off, maybe I'll give you a little bit of history. The regional agreement was created when I believe the Mohawk Trail building was built, I'll say around 1968 or so, I think is when the regional agreement was written. And then about 20 some odd years ago, school choice was enacted in Massachusetts. So for the last 20 years or so, we've been using the current formula of how we calculate our operating assessments and capital assessments based on the regional agreements, using a 5-year rolling average of the students that are attending the assigned school, basically. So what these amendments are made to do, and I understand it's somewhere around 10 pages worth of stuff. A lot of it is just amending the way it's currently written. The 3 amendments, the first one is made to adopt a 5-year rolling average calculation based on foundation enrollment instead of the current method. The second amendment is made to apply the switch to the foundation enrollment methodology. And then the third is simply effective dates of these changes. So I'll kind of explain why we've chosen foundation enrollment as the best way to currently calculate how the assessments are applied. Foundation enrollment is a term used by DESE. They use for all their calculations of how to count students. Basically, foundation enrollment would include, if I can find all my papers, let me find the chart I'm looking for, sorry. Over here. Foundation enrollment is going to include all the students, there we go, that are attending their assigned school. So that would be like a Shelburne student going to BSE or to Mohawk Trail. It would include any of, I'm going to use Shelburne as the example, any Shelburne students that are going what we call intra-district. So if they were choicing to Coleraine Central, foundation enrollment would include them as well. And then our kids that are choicing out of district. So if they were going to Greenfield or Pioneer, they would be included in foundation enrollment. And then our kids that are out of districts, special education students. So if they need to go to a Braille school or something, then that's how foundation enrollment counts our students. So again, you'll notice that the choice students get counted in that foundation enrollment number. The way the current regional agreement is written is, again, it was written before choice existed. The choice students come out of that equation. So if we have a student that choices to Pioneer, then they're not counted in the operating assessment or the capital assessment. If we have a student that choices to Coleraine, now that doesn't cost the district any money because it's intra-district, but Coleraine would not, Shelburne would not be responsible for paying their portion of that student's operating assessment. So it's a lot of wording that is basically just cleaning up the language to come to, current standards and how, most other districts and DESE count students. So just to give an example as to why we think it's so important, if you take Hawley as an example, they have very few students. They have 8 students currently counted in our current calculations that go to the Mohawk Trail School. If they were to, as a town, try and get all 8 of those students to choice out of the district, they would pay 0 above minimum contribution in capital or operating assessment to the Mohawk district. So they would have available slots, they'd be able to vote on everything, they'd be able to do everything, but they would pay no money because as a town, everybody else choiced out of district. So that's kind of a very dramatic example, town of Shelburne with all the students we have, they wouldn't all choice elsewhere. But a few families get together and Holly would have, Drury is like 8 miles away from their school. Mohawk is actually a further school to go to. So this amendment is all about fairness to all the towns. So basically in that Holly example, if they were to choice all of their students out, the other 7 towns are basically picking up the expenses that Holly should be paying. So we're going to spread those operating and capital costs amongst the other 7 towns because they happen to have choiced all their students out. And on top of that, we would pay the $5,000 per student in choice fees. So Holly's going to contribute nothing. And the Mohawk district is going to pay $40,000 to send their kids elsewhere. So it feels, to some people I've talked to, a little rushed, a little wordy, a little, like a lot to take in, but it's all about fairness. And the initial intent was, we had multiple meetings about this, especially in our budget subcommittee, which we've had great representation from the towns. We regularly have Ashfield, Buckland, Coleraine, Shelburne, covered. As far as finance committee members, board of selectmen, sometimes Barry from Buckland comes. So the chair of our school committee initially wanted to create an ad hoc committee to study this and then propose it all next round of town meetings. And we had a couple meetings kind of discussing the ins and outs of why it should be happening. And then you guys can read or watch in the February 8th meeting. It's a recorded meeting. We had representation. We had Deb Andrews from Shelburne Finance Committee. We had Michael, I'm going to ruin people's names, Shipus from Coleraine Finance Committee. We had Paula Consuelo from Buckland, Ben Markins and Carol Liebold from the Ashfield Finance Committee. And then our committee is represented by Shelburne, Buckland, Coleraine, Charlemont, and Holly. So we had kind of all those towns in the room. And Martha was suggesting that we create, our chair was suggesting that we create this ad hoc committee. And basically everyone in the room said, why not? There's not a lot of debate about why to do it. Let's have the lawyers drop the papers and try and get it before everybody this go round. So the room kind of vetoed Martha's idea of studying this more and having, meetings and other involvement. We've had really, like I said, really good representation at our budget subcommittee meetings. And we talked about it on 1/11, 2/8. We talked about it at the December meeting. We talked about it 3/1, 4/12. We've talked about this multiple times. And it was the consensus of the room to forego the ad hoc committee and push it through. It's a matter of fairness. Not that any town is going to go through that loophole of trying to suggest that everybody go choice elsewhere, but that is the reality of how it is. And with, so many of our towns have being pretty small populations, that could have a big impact. So in my mind, it's a fairness thing. It's closing some loopholes because the agreement was written prior to, the induction of school choice. I think the way it's presented with spreading it out and phasing in the 5-year, it won't have any one big hit to any specific town. I think you guys got the spreadsheets on if we were to have done it this year, it has, very negligible impact to Shelburne, right off the bat. Now, all that is up in the air, and like, you can't really project that out because for one, you don't know how many students you're going to have. You don't know where they're going to head, but it's just the way that, in today's, age, you should be counting your students is this basic foundation enrollment idea. And we're just trying to bring the regional agreement up to speed. Sorry if that was confusing. Any questions?
No, I found that to be helpful, Jason. Thank you for giving us your background and your take on it. Margaret, do you have questions or thoughts?
No, I was a little overwhelmed by the amount of paperwork at the last minute. And even though it's not specifically related to the finances, knowing the whole system is a piece of understanding how the money gets spent and everything. And I just felt as though it's a shame it would have had to wait a whole year, but I just felt it was really rushed. And I know I didn't have a chance to really understand it completely. Trying to compare the redlined version with the old version. Those of you who've worked on it a lot, was probably a lot easier. And I think, Terry, did you say that Julie had arrived too, or
That's correct.
would she want to make any comments about it, do you think?
Julie, welcome to the meeting. I don't know if you were able to hear Jason's synopsis of the 3 articles. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
I don't have anything that I can add to his explanation because I'm not a part of the budget subcommittee. I received the information just a couple days before our last school committee meeting. So I didn't really have a chance to look it over. And while I did vote in favor of bringing it or having it put on the warrant in retrospect, I probably should have either abstained or voted no, because I really didn't have time to digest the information. And I also don't feel like I can explain the implications, the financial implications to townspeople or finance committee, select board. We've seen the projected percentages based on the last 5 years, but we still don't have what the dollar amounts would be and what that implication would be. And the other thing is, I don't agree necessarily that this is the way that it should be funded. I feel like towns should pay for or should be assessed for the students who are being educated in their schools. And if families choose to send their child to private school or homeschool or choice charter school, they're not being educated in our town's schools. So they're not putting, we're not providing teachers for them. They're not putting wear and tear on the buildings. So I don't necessarily feel like we should be assessed for them. And I feel like it would be a double hit to towns to be assessed for students that are not being educated in our schools. And then on top of that, be contributing to the amount that we pay out in school choice. So I think it would be a double hit to towns. So that's the way I understand things right now. And I do feel like it was very rushed. I haven't had a chance to really sit down and look through all of the paperwork and feel comfortable enough to answer questions.
Well, thank you, Julie. I guess we've got point counterpoint there among our 2 school committee representatives. Bob, do you have thoughts or questions?
No, I thought Jason did a reasonable job on the overview. Unfortunately, back years ago when school choice wasn't even thought of, we have to evolve and keep up with the times. And you can see where, as towns begin to look for other options or trying to save as much money, where this becomes important to have in place. And yes, though, the last minute, and a lot of verbiage. I would have liked to have more opportunity to study it, but there's a couple of different factors. And just, I think, for the knowledge that we have, I don't think it's unreasonable to be voting on it at this town meeting.
Finance Committee, do you have thoughts or questions you'd like to put to either of our school committee representatives?
Yeah, I do. I just don't.
Can you identify yourselves when you're speaking?
Todd Dubriel, Finance
Thanks.
Committee. I kind of find this hard to digest as being a fairness issue, because I do agree, like, I'm not sure why we should be charged for kids who aren't putting wear and tear on the buildings. It doesn't seem like that's the route we should be going. This thing it's like, I don't know why we had to put it before the town this quick. It's a huge document for us to digest. And I don't think people can really grasp. Nobody here can tell the implications down the road of what this will do. And I kind of find it a little bit, the analogies we're using that whole towns are going to just completely opt out. I mean, we have bigger things to worry about than like coming up with documents like this that are kind of holding us, basically penalizing people when people are leaving the district. That's the way I feel.
Other thoughts from the Finance Committee?
Hi, this is Matt Hopway. I guess maybe just on the financial implication that was sent around. Jason, can you maybe just comment on it, just high level, change? My takeaway is that Buckland benefits to the tune of $122,000 this year, meaning their assessment will go down by $122,000, and that's without question the most significant implication. Logically, why does that make sense? Like, what's going on there? Why is Buckland getting a big benefit of this?
So you're right. That would, if this was enacted this year, this would be the snapshot of how it would happen. That document you have with the finances. Buckland was the negative 4.36%. And it's, I'm sure, just because of numbers of kids choosing different places. If they have less school choice out, then they would, in theory, benefit from this. What happens, and then Shelburne's number is $1,900 to the negative. It would cost $1,900 more, and as you go through, you're right, that was, the extreme number. It would cost Ashfield 81,000 more, Charlemont 8,000 more, and so on. You have the same document. I'll kind of counter a few of those other points or clarify a few things. Julie mentioned homeschool, private school, tech schools. Those are not counted in foundation enrollment, so those make no changes. The only two that would change would be the kids choosing out of district and the special ed out of district. Those would be the two that would be added in. And then for capital, for some reason, the way our regional agreement is, we don't even do the same formula for operating as we do for capital right now. The intra-district choice happens with operating assessments, but not with capital assessments. To a couple other points that were mentioned, the finances were given out. We do have the dollars that would be, if this was to happen today. The size of the document's been brought up a couple times. I mean, those current three, whatever it was, those three amendments totaling in about 10 pages, a lot of that is verbiage that's already in the regional agreement. And then the red line version does show those changes, which, I don't know, if you added them all up, might be a couple pages of changes. And it's not a double hit to any towns. You know, like the example said, for Shelburne, the hit to enacting this, had it been enacted last year, would be $1,900 this year, and it could work in our favor. We could be 121,000 to the positive the following year. It's just about getting it evenly fair. And I think it is fair to say that a small town like Hawley or Heath, with limited kids, could totally, not have an assessment in the district with those small numbers. I mean, foundation enrollment is how, other districts count stuff. It's how DESI counts, kids. And, I think, the fact that it's being rushed through, I would agree, that this is being pushed through, and that was the consensus of the budget subcommittee and the town officials, at multiple meetings, is why wait, and, just like, when Julie did vote yes on this, she had hesitations at that meeting, and, and in the end, if I'm remembering correctly, said, okay, I'm not saying I agree with this amendment. I'm saying let's put it before the towns. And that's, basically just what we're asking to do.
And
One point of clarification, Jason, you mentioned that private school, homeschool, and tech school and are not included in the foundational number. What about charter school students?
Charter schools are included, yes.
In the foundation number.
In a foundation number.
So this
yes.
is adding charter and choice is the two categories that are being added.
I hand wrote a chart because I needed to get it all through my head, and I have, yes, this would add choice out of district, choice intra-district, and charter are the things that are counted differently for foundation enrollment. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments, questions from the Finance Committee? Please identify yourself when you're speaking.
Deborah, Andrew. I'm on the phone, Andrew. I'm sorry that you can't see
Oh, okay.
You guys
Go
hear,
ahead.
sorry, I'm holding, can you guys hear Deb? I'm holding the phone up to the speaker.
I can hear Deb.
Okay, go ahead, Deb.
Okay. Folks, in listening to all of this, I would offer the following. I think Martha was right when she wanted to hold this off and give it more time. It's even though it may seem to be fair, I'm not convinced either way, frankly, listening to all the comments and Jason's excellent outlining of his understanding of this document. So my suggestion is that we not ask the town to vote for something they don't fully understand. I don't think it's the right thing to do.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anything left else from the Finance Committee?
Hey, just Jason, one question. Do all 8 towns have to approve this in order for it to become effective? I assume the answer is yes.
Yes.
And is it right that Heath is not going to put this on their warrant this year?
No, they did. In the recorder article, it said no. Actually, nobody can not put it on the warrant. The regional agreement states that if we propose a warrant, the towns have to put it on. And once that was made clear to Heath, they did put it on their warrant. So, if the school proposes a warrant, part of the regional agreement says that it has to go on.
And it has to go on at
It
the
wasn't.
current town meeting, at the upcoming town meeting, or it has to be, we can have a special town meeting down the road and consider it 6 months.
I don't know it's the specifics, but that's why Heath ended up putting it on their warrant, is because they didn't have the option to not put it on. Is how it was explained to me, but I haven't read it, so I'm not an expert on that aspect.
It is true that we would have to bring it if we didn't put it on the warrant. we would have to bring it to a special town meeting.
Mhm.
We seem to be kind of hogtied in several ways by the state and by other places. I guess the one thing that's frustrating for me, and all I can do is mention it. The vote that we took to put it on the warrant, the first vote that we took, was before all the redlining came through. And I know that we may be the first town meeting in the district,
I
is that
think we
true?
are, yeah.
So I realized that we were the ones that kind of were most vulnerable to it. But I was not in favor of it being put on the warrant. I wouldn't stand against that now, knowing that we'd have to have a town meeting and what the other towns are doing. But it just doesn't help in communication and relationship when, you know, we vote on something and then, oh, by the way, there's this thing that is also is to replace that. We haven't been done enough to tell you about that yet. And I'm not sure it's completely true that everybody was 100% saying, sure, let's go, of all at the meeting of the town municipal people. So it leaves kind of a bad taste in my mouth. And I feel like we have to go ahead. But it didn't, as has happened in other situations. It didn't seem to take into account the time for the towns to be actively involved in understanding and asking questions. So.
Mhm.
But just one point of clarification there, Margaret. I did read a red line version of this before we voted last week.
I know last week, but we voted before that to put it on the warrant.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure which meeting you were referring to there.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
We voted at first. Then we
Okay.
just had the black and white.
gotcha. Okay,
Last week was when I was concerned and we had a longer conversation.
yeah, okay. So Jason, I just want to, and maybe for the benefit, since we do have a unusually large crowd of people who I hope will all come to the town meeting on the May 2nd, that just to clarify what it means when we vote on this. If we vote yes, we pass these articles. If we vote no, they don't come back to us until next year's town meeting. And if we vote to pass over, then we are putting ourselves in a position to possibly have to have a special town meeting. That's my understanding of the three options that the voters will have. Is that your understanding?
I think, I'm not sure what happens if you pass over. That might be basically a no vote and it would come back around. I'm not positive. You know, obviously you vote yes, it moves on. It still has to be passed by 7 other towns. You are the, you know, Shelburne is the first. And, you know, to be honest, you know, I think this is going to be a hard sell at multiple towns, you know, somewhat because of understanding or how the specific hit would hit them, you know, if they're looking at one specific year. And that's why, you know, in how it's always been explained to me, and I feel like the fairness factor is, you know, there shouldn't be a way to work the system. It should be a fairness. We have kids in the district, you know, we're going to hold a slot for them whether they choose to choice out or not. So
No,
it's
Jason, we
one
don't
thing.
need to explain the thing. We've got the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm, you know, I agree with it. You know, will argue it, you know, but I totally understand if it's voted down, and I know it will come back next town meeting, and hopefully people will have a better understanding of it at that point.
No, I'm just trying to clarify, if we pass over, are we setting ourselves up for a potential special town meeting? Terry, do you have clarification on that?
Oh,
I would assume passing over it would be a no vote or no action.
Right,
But
but
I
does that
don't
mean
know-
we're pointing ourselves toward a special or not? That's the one concern I have, is that I would rather not have this question litigated at a special town meeting.
I honestly don't know that.
Okay.
Clifton Pivots a little bit, and my understanding is that it could be a vote, a yes or no vote. And then there's options, like at least based on Robert's rules, which we use at the town meeting. It could be tabled and voted on, like brought back for a vote at some later time. Or there could be, we could make a motion to postpone it to a specific time, which could be a special town meeting after the other towns have proceeded with their town
Right.
meetings.
Well, that's
which-
the one option I am crystal clear on not wanting to do, is to have 10 people come and vote on this at a special town meeting. So I would like to have us either approve it or reject it, so that if it's rejected, it comes back to us in a year at a full town meeting.
So if it was, it could be postponed until next year. When a motion is made to postpone a vote, you can set the time, or it can be postponed indefinitely, and then I don't
Right.
recalled.
I just want to make sure when we make those motions that voters understand whether or not they're putting themselves on the hook for the cost and the time and the less democratic nature of a special town meeting. So maybe we can get our moderator to clarify that for us before we enter into this at town meeting. But does anybody else have any thoughts or questions about this set of articles?
I just have one more thing to say about this. Like, as a finance committee member, we have 7 days before meeting. I'm like supposed to like I'm assuming everybody here has looked through the document. The document's confusing to me what the implications are gonna be. How am I supposed to convey the constituents that are asking me about this, how to vote? I mean, this is the part where it's like, it seems like whether it came late, it's too late for anybody to make a good judgment on this. You can't tell me that I have the information to do it, because I don't, and the voters aren't gonna have time in 7 days to digest it. So I'm a little bit nervous about how we're supposed to proceed. So that's enough on that.
Great. All right. Well, I think everybody's had a chance to speak here. We will move on to the next item, but thank you, Jason and Julie, for joining us and giving us some more information about these articles.
Thank you.
All righty. So we are on to the streetlight question, or the streetlight issue. And I'd like to begin partly because we have a fairly large crew of people who I'm assuming are mostly here, if not entirely here, for the streetlight agenda item. Though I thank you for joining us for the other items of town business here. You get a chance to hear and participate in the other business of the town. But just to provide a quick background to catch us up on where we've been with this issue, the select board learned about the Eversource having a program to replace streetlights with LEDs, more efficient LED streetlight bulbs, over a year ago. And we asked our town administrator to stay on top of that issue and sort of nudge Eversource towards us in pursuing that energy efficiency measure. And so she did that. And last fall, Eversource did come forward and say they were willing to replace our streetlights with LEDs for free. So the board at that point said, great, let's do it. And And so we began moving forward down that path. Eversource did agree to install a set of demonstration lights on Main Street. I think there are 5 of them from Church going north. And those were 51-watt bulbs. And we looked at those and we said, wow, those are pretty bright. Do you have anything else? And at that point, we had the assistance of a Shelburne resident and sometime member of the Energy Committee, John Walsh, who's also a former Eversource employee. And he has worked with Terry to kind of negotiate with our Eversource contact. And we were able to get a second demonstration installed on Church Street. I think there are 3 or 4 lights there that are 36 watts. And we looked at those and then we went back with the help of John and Terry and said, do you have something lower? And so they installed yet a third demonstration of 30-watt bulbs on Water Street from the corner of Water and Main down to, I believe, to Cross Street. And so we now have 3 sets of demonstration bulbs, and I think the universal sense of them is that they do illuminate the street, but they cast a lot of glare. And so we brought that back to Eversource, and they said, well, we will add shields to these lights to help better direct the light downward onto the street area. And so that's as far as we've gotten as far in terms of the evolution of this project. As far as I know, I have asked that Eversource actually install a shielded 30-watt light at the corner of Water and Main, which is where we had some of the most vocal outcry of too much glare and too much shining into people's houses. And as far as I know, that has not happened yet. So we're still waiting to see. And Terry's gotten breaking news for us. So Terry, feel free to add any more updates on anything that I have, or correct anything I've said here by way of introduction.
The only thing I'll add is I received word today from Eversource that the shield and alignment took place Wednesday night on Water Street.
Okay, so we do have one shielded demonstration light that is 30 watts, and that's at the corner of Water and Main, is that right?
I know it's in front of or near Jill Connolly's residence.
Okay, good. So we now have at least one light that represents what Eversource's current proposal is for swapping out our lights. The other things I will add to what I have learned in this process over this, 6-8 months that we've been working with Eversource on this. One is that some people have asked, well, can we remove the higher wattage bulbs since we don't like those? And the answer that Terry has gotten is no. Eversource is in the process of phasing out the sodium vapor bulbs that we currently have, and that furthermore, any of those bulbs that burn out will get replaced with LEDs. So it sounds to me, am I correct? Is that it? Did I state that correctly, Terry?
That is correct.
Okay. So that's kind of where we're at on the track with Eversource. So if we do nothing with Eversource, if we say we don't want to go any further with this project, the default will be that our lights will slowly age out, and whenever they burn out, they'll get replaced with LEDs. And so this project proposes to replace them all at once. In the meantime, the Energy Committee has also discussed this project and is bringing forth a proposal, I believe, tonight to study this issue further. Tom Johnson is the chair of our Energy Committee. Tom, do you want to say anything further about that proposal?
Yes, Andrew, I'd be happy to. As you know, our Energy Committee sent a memo to the Select Board last Friday. And if you don't mind, I'll read through it rapidly. First, we thank the Select Board for considering the replacement of Shelburne sodium vapor streetlights with LEDs and your attempt to gather citizen feedback on 3 different LED options. Unfortunately, very few citizens were aware of the LED choices being offered, either because they had not heard of the demonstration lights in town, or they had not walked out in the chilly winter weather to observe them after dark. We and you now realize that there are many different options of LED lights available, of warmer Kelvin color than what has thus far been on display, with dimming capabilities that would result in even greater financial savings, energy savings, and carbon emission savings, and that would result in, and in compliance with recommendations of the International Dark Sky Association of Massachusetts. Many of our citizens object to the LED lights that have been on display thus far, with concerns expressed about their bright white glare, the blinding effect of the glare, the light pollution on neighboring houses, and possible adverse impact on wildlife. With these concerns in mind, we urge the Select Board to hold off on any replacement of streetlights with LED lights until after our committee has undertaken an in-depth study of what LED light option is best for our town, seeking to optimize cost, energy conservation, aesthetic impact, and wildlife preservation. We would display a modest selection of LED lights for the public to view and vote on their preference. We would make every effort to complete the study and make our recommendation to you by August 1st. That's it.
August 1st. Oh, I thought it was July 1st.
If you read the memo, it says August 1st.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. So that's the proposal of the Energy Committee. Bob and Margaret, your thoughts, comments, questions?
I'd like to hear from some more folks who have come to discuss this, to help give me some more information about it.
Raise your hand.
Just-
Boy, Andrew,
Bob?
I've talked about this issue to folks out in the rural part of town, and they just find themselves shaking their heads where have been offered a very, very generous offer by Eversource with shields and aiming and low wattage LED bulbs for free, saving us over $50,000 in installation costs. And then as repair costs come through, as we try to customize the lighting and such, they're scratching their head going, why am I, a resident of Shelburne, having to pay for something that would be free to and impact my taxes when I don't get any benefit from it? I would, I would recommend you guys form your own lighting district, and then you guys can do what you want and be able to, like your sewer district for the use of, lighting and things like that, have another one. It comes down again to equity amongst the rural and the village area. I understand there's a lot of people that feel a great deal about the impact of the LED lights and their their and their proximity to their house, their sleep patterns and things like that. And I sympathize towards them, but we have not given Eversource the full chance to prove themselves with their offer. They have given us an extremely generous offer that will save the town thousands of dollars. And here we are being a green community, and we're laughing at a gift, looking a gift horse in the mouth because of concerns of that it can be easily addressed. And the fact that people are just now learning about it. This has been brought forth in our newsletter. You can argue to the cows come home that no, I did not know it until my friend called me up and told me about this, and go stand on Water Street and Main Street. But we as a town sometimes have to do our due diligence for the greater good of it. And I personally felt we have done our due diligence. We have been open about this. This has not been anything we've been sweeping under the carpet. And I'm going to be, and the wonderful thing about select board meetings is that you all have the right to come and speak your mind. But I like to point out that there are several things in place. One, we have voted to accept the offer from Eversource. It was a unanimous vote. And to bring forth now a study is admirable, but in order to change an unanimous vote, it's going to come down to one person's swing vote in regards to this, I'm pretty sure. Unfortunately, that's going to be the case. And understand that regardless of how the select board does this, we appreciate everyone speaking out and having the opportunity to, but sometimes people win, sometimes people lose. I've lost on several occasions, and I accept it. And if the board does not decide to go back to reverse a unanimous vote, then please understand that we're thinking about the green communities, we're thinking about energy consumption, we're thinking about the savings that we will have for over the course of the lifetime. And as Andrew said, regardless of how this ends up, we're going to end up with LED lights as the incandescents phase out. So as that said, I think we just need to give Eversource the opportunity. They have the exports and they have not done us wrong yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Just a couple of points of clarification before I go back to Margaret. Bob, since you were not at the last meeting, one of the things that we were able to clarify, and Terry, please again correct me if I misstate this, is that if we were to accept the Energy Committee's offer to study this issue for us and bring us a proposal in August 1st, we are not necessarily rejecting Eversource's offer. We're simply postponing it. And that my understanding from Terry's conversation there is that Eversource is open to us extending our timeline in that regard. And so we would presumably come back to this issue in August and review the proposal and make a decision at that time whether to accept Eversource's offer or not. And, you know, one of the options could be to accept the offer and accept the committee's recommendations, which might put us on another couple of year timeline to raise money and implement whatever it is they recommend, and to put in the Eversource lights in the interim. So there's a number of different ways that we could pursue this. And, you know, that's all I wanted to clarify there. But Margaret, you wanted to hear from more folks. I'm a little bit.
No, I particularly wanted to hear from Jill Connolly. Is she here?
I'm here. I'm here.
Yeah, oh, there you are. Hi. Could you tell me
Hi.
if some of the adjustments made any difference in your problem?
A wonderful guy came by the other night around 8 o'clock, just before the lights came on. And he said, there aren't really shields for this, but I have a couple of extra bolts. I'm going to take something and go up there with my screw gun and try to shield the light from directly over and around your house. There aren't really shields for this, but I'm going to just, you know, cobble something together and, you know, watch me go up in the bucket truck and we'll talk later. So the poor guy gets up there by himself with a screw gun, and just as he's trying to put this thing on that he fashioned, the light comes on in his face. It was like something out of a movie. Anyway, he put like a little metal strip up there. He also admitted that it's not actually a shield, that they don't actually make shields for these, but it does direct the light to our neighbors. So now our neighbors have it like startlingly against their house. But it was lovely of him to come by. It did help me. Now the problem is in someone else's face, and it's not really a solution. He did admit that, but he said, you know, I can do this tonight with a couple of bolts and a piece of metal. So bring on any further info, bring on any new insights and new ideas. Please bring it on, because no one would want this situation outside their room. And free or not, no one would want this outside their house, surrounding their house. It's ridiculous.
Thank you, Jill. And so Terry, just as a point of clarification, does that conform to your understanding of the shield installation project? Because it sounds like that was just a cob job and not adding the shields that they spec'd.
I would have to confirm that with Eversource. I knew when I last spoke with a representative that they were waiting on shields, but they were sending a lineman out with what I thought was a shield to try to temper what was going on Water Street. She did say when the shields do come in, they were going to retrofit the lights in the shop before actually installing them on the pole. So I'm not sure what that individual had in hand, whether it was a shield or a piece of metal.
Okay, so it sounds like we had it was nice to hear that Eversource was at least timely in their attempt to respond to your concern there, Jill, but it sounds like we don't yet have the actual demonstration light with a shield on it.
That is true. That is true. And he just shrugged his shoulders and said, there isn't something that's going to be for this. There's no kit for this.
Huh.
And he just shrugged his shoulders. And that was all he could, could do.
Well, sounds like we got more to learn there in terms of the shielded light question. Margaret, do you want to, I was going to sort of give the general public a chance to comment again at public comment time, but because we had such a large outpouring of comments at our last meeting, not to kind of engage in the full Monty right here. But if you want to call upon specific people to answer your questions or concerns.
No, thank you, Andrew, for the opportunity to speak. I just particularly wanted to hear how it went with Jill.
Okay. Well, if there's
Wait,
sorry, go
wait,
ahead.
I'm not done yet. I was just taking a breath.
Oh, sorry.
And refocusing.
Continue.
Thank you. There's a lot about this situation that really is troubling to me, and from all different aspects of it. And I'm not sure where to start. I guess one of the places I'll start with was I was very appreciative of all of the comments at the last select board meeting when people spoke, because they were very positive and very respectful and civil and all that. I appreciated that. I've heard a different story from friends of mine who live in the neighborhood, who have been speaking about petitions and vile comments and excessive criticism and all kinds of stuff. And that troubles me, especially at the 11th hour of this. And perhaps that's what troubles me the most. If it did not go well, I apologize for us, but we felt that we were following a path that did allow and invite people to say things. And, people fail and mistakes get made, and maybe the information didn't get out, but it was in several places. And I feel like there was this big push all of a sudden to say, this is terrible, this is bad, you shouldn't have done this, this is just a bad thing. I'm not saying that any particular person said that to me. I'm just saying that I appreciate the restraint where restraint has been shown. I am very aware of the unpleasantness of the bright LED bulbs. I'm not crazy about them either. And I don't live in town, but I drove through, and I can understand how that would be a problem, especially for people where they're near their houses. I would like to see us move toward a different system. But I think there's been kind of an unrealistic expectation that we could have something ready to go so soon when other towns have taken so much longer. I think there's a naivete about the amount of funds that would be available and what the taxpayers would have to bear. We do not have a lot of ARPA money left, just way under 100,000. There might be other grants available. Grants take a long time to write and get. I just don't think it's realistic to say, don't do this because on August 1st, we're going to have the answer and we'll be ready to go. On August 1st, you might know what it will cost. And then it has to be presented to the town to decide if they want to spend that money. Other towns have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, hopefully a lot of it from grants. But if we set this aside now, then if we get hit by reality and nothing really happens for a year or two, I feel like I won't have done my filtering about what I need to do because of my fiscal responsibility toward the town. I disagree a little bit with Bob in the sense that actually I've talked to some people in the rural area, and they would just like any lights out near where they live. They would like more lights because they don't have enough for safety. So what do we do with the rural area? They're not trying to stand in the way. I mean, most of them haven't even heard about the discussion, but when I said anything about lights, they said, oh, is there a plan that maybe we can have some more lights at intersections out near where we live? So this is a big issue, and it's not going to get resolved and ready to go in 2 months because it's going to cost a lot of money. In conversations with Eversource, they have said you know, that they're on a path of evolving toward better quality and less glary lights. They're not there yet. They won't be there for a while. But in my fiduciary responsibility to the town, I feel that taking advantage of a free offer now, I mean, if it takes us 2 or 3 years to get a plan, and maybe we've raised money for it or not, I don't think there's any reason why we can't move ahead with this kind of plan without this frantic 11th hour. We got to do this by August 1st. It's not going to be done by August 1st. It just isn't. We're not going to have the money. We're going to have to go to the town for money. I would like to see this happen, but I don't think it can happen as soon as people would like it to happen. Plus all the other issues of, is it fair to the rural communities? Should we be looking at giving them lights first for safety, for traffic accidents at intersections? It's a really big situation. And before I would want to move too quickly and say to the town, we did not take Eversource's deal, and it's going to cost X to do this. I would like to start with Eversource, who have promised to evolve in their working to improve the quality of the lights, to make them less glary. You know, push them on the shield business. They're going to be hearing it from other towns as well. And so I know this won't be a very popular opinion, but to get started and save money right up front, keep working with Eversource, and if they don't meet our expectations, find a way to implement this plan when we've got the money in place, when we've taken the whole town into consideration for street lighting facts. I really dislike being unpopular, but I can't help it in this situation. I would love to say, sure, I wish I had $1 million and I'd say, I'll pay for it, because I would love to see this in downtown. Our sodium lights are going to be gone. That's happening in every town. Boston's done it. Every place has done it. But we can make a plan in the future to have lights that we love that are LED and don't shine into people's windows and don't make our Bridge Street look like a mall. I want to see that happen. I just don't believe that it can happen as soon as people would love to see it happen. So I stand with moving ahead with Eversource and keeping pressure on them to continue the kind of evolution for our sake that they've promised to do.
Well, thank you, Margaret. Just a point of clarification. I think the proposal on the table does not necessarily preclude us from moving ahead with Eversource. The proposal is to study the question until August 1st, and then put that on the table together with the question of whether to move ahead with Eversource. So it's not an either or proposition here. It's really a question of, do we want to gather more information before we move to the implementation stage? And I guess putting myself on or recognizing myself to put my 2 cents into the pot here, you know, I would say that because Eversource has given us already, you know, 3 or 4 different modifications to their original proposal, you know, I see the Energy Committee's proposition as being a wonderful kind of focus group marketing opportunity for Eversource to use our community as a learning option for how to evolve and improve their lighting schemes, so that you know, as we gather this information, we're actually helping them go to other towns with better proposals, you know, in the future, in much the same way that the auto industry, when they first shifted their headlights to LEDs, they found them to be a real safety hazard. They were blinding people, you know, coming in the other direction, and they've since moderated their LEDs. So we have seen that shift happen fairly quickly in one industry, I think there's an opportunity to accelerate the learning curve. And Eversource has already shown itself to be pretty willing to kind of go down that curve with us. So I'd like to see us, continue that learning. And if we, and I definitely would like to see us be able to see at least one shielded light before we press the button and say, yeah, we want 99 of these. So, that would be my minimum ask from Eversource to say, let's put in at least one shielded light. But, I think there's no, we've been many years with the sodium lights, and we've been a few months with these test LED lights, and going a few months longer while the Energy Committee researches the topic. I think one key piece of research that they can do between now and August, one is to ask Eversource, can we have more lights in the rural areas? I think that's a good question to ask. The second would be if they come up with a warmer light with, lower kelvins or whatever, that is more preferable to people in the village area, would Eversource agree to maintain those lights with us? And what would that cost? Or would they continue their free maintenance policy? I think there's a lot of questions about whether or not this is going to cost the taxpayers anything, depending on which way we go, that we need to still research further. I think the presumption that if we reject this offer or postpone it, that it's automatically going to cost the taxpayers money, I don't know that that's true yet. So, I say if Eversource is willing to push the pause button and let us gather more information, then I'm in favor of that, because I still haven't seen what it is they're proposing to install.
Andrew, Terry has done yeoman's work on doing legwork between countless residents in Eversource, answering your questions, answering a lot of questions. And it's becoming pretty evident that Eversource has been very, very patient with us. And at some point, we're going to wear out our welcome. And I agree with Margaret that I would love more lights around the area just for safety factors in the rural area of the town. And again, with the delaying, I agree with Margaret that, to accept their offer, keep moving forward. And because this is not going to be resolved by August. I agree with Margaret on that 100%. And we're just, again, kicking this can down the road. And just, Margaret's got a very good, strong point.
Yeah, I guess just as a point of clarification, Bob, I don't think the proposal is to resolve the issue by August. The proposal is to bring information and a proposal to the board in August, and to say, this is what we've discovered in our research about the kind of light, the cost of the light, and the installation and maintenance cost, and all of those things will be brought to the board.
We've gotten all that, Andrew.
No, we've gotten that with the one light that Eversource is now proposing, but we have not gotten
we've
that
gone through
with
4 different lights, Andrew. We've gone 50, 35, 38, 30, 28. We've gone through a lot of lights. We have not given them their full opportunity to do the shielding. We've not given them, one of your tactics is just continuing drawing on, but understand that Terry has done a lot of research, and she's got a pretty good handle on this. And when I listen to her speak of what Eversource is willing to do and what they've done, I put a lot of credit into what she has to say and offer. And I know we have a lot of people here that are not happy with how this course of the conversation's going. And I know there's that we have, in my opinion, and based on John Walsh, who we've had a lot of research with, we're wearing out our welcome. And yes, the Energy Committee, they're going to come back, they'll recommend it, but then what do? We already, the money that the Eversources offer us, how we're going to raise the money, which is going to be completely opposite. So it's, I'm still solid with Margaret that we can listen and have the committee report, but I still am not convinced that reversing or putting on hold this vote is the right thing to do for the town, because we sometimes just have to make the hard decisions of looking ahead in the future, what's going to be the best. And we know that this offer is not going to be on the table forever.
Do we know that?
Terry Mitchell, Finance Committee, that's one of my questions. Do we know when this offer goes away? I mean, I can't imagine it's just gonna hang out there forever. Is there a date we have to start this project by before the offer just, we lose it?
Terry, any clarification there?
As far as I know, there is no drop dead deadline date. Eversource has been very patient as we work through this. I did speak with a representative last week and offered to be a cutting edge town where we partner with them and even pay for a portion of the bulbs that this group seems to want, warmer colors, automatic dimming, and they were unwilling. What they have in stock is what they're offering. They talked about the city of Springfield, where they're installing thousands of lights, which will take them a few years. And perhaps as more technology is available through their relamping program, they will offer bulbs with the same kind of functionality that the group is looking for. But at present, the only offer on the table is to have Eversource own the lights or have the town own and maintain the lights, which would also include if a car were to hit a pole that had nothing but a light on it, the town would have to pay to replace the pole.
And under the agreement we currently have with Eversource, they maintain that if they do this conversion.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Andrew, I think there's a lot of hands up.
Anyways, correct, as they burn out, and we have no choice on the wattage then, it's whatever they put on, right?
That is correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Tom or Kate, do you have any points of clarification that you want to make? You're muted.
Yeah, hi. It's really
Please do not engage in further advocacy. I think we have the proposal on the table and we're just needing further clarification at this point.
I want to very specifically address Margaret's and Bob's very important comments. First, especially to Margaret, I'm sorry you heard some kind of disagreeable comments. I can say to a person, I have not. And everyone has been so supportive and appreciative, sincerely, of the efforts to save energy and to save the town money. I have not heard anything disparaging at all. And so I'm sorry, and that has affected you. And I'm very sorry that that happened for you. And for Bob, you raised some really important points. We are in touch with a quite conservative town. I hope you've had the time to read the articles of how Pepperell, Massachusetts went. And we're in touch with the town administrator, the resident that helped, who's with the IDA, the International Dark Skies Association. They're giving us all kinds of information, all kinds of feedback on the fixture that Eversource is offering us. They are willing to help us cut costs for a lighting design. And the reason Pepperell went their route, which is the alternative route of being able to dim lights, was when they completed their cost analysis that does not take that long, especially since we have their help. They found that they were saving on the order of 81% on their electric bill. And the fact that they could dim these lights meant that these lights are lasting much longer. So you're replacing them far fewer than you would if you're burning them at full intensity. The lower light, we even visited the police station. Tom and I went and spent the night in Pepperell. We went to see these lights. And one of the important things that we're very concerned about, because we have a fantastic police department, we went and talked to their police and we said, you know, how is this for you? What do you think of these lights that only ever come on to 50% intensity? And then they lower them further at night to 30%. And the police have these lights have been up and running now for 18 months, and the police have no complaints at all, zero. And these people are willing to help us. People in Northampton are willing to help us with their experience, so we can take advantage of what they've been through. And you know, it's really remarkable that they chose to have a comprehensive study from the very beginning, which regrettably we didn't. So the fixture, Bob, that you've been, that Terry's done so much hard work for, it's just one light. It just happens to have different wattages. We're talking about other lighting options that can deliver these softer lights for people. There's a gentleman, I think he's here tonight, is suffering macular degeneration. He went and looked at the test street lights on Water Street and was completely blinded. You know, that's someone that I care about very much. Many people are getting blinded looking on, and we have to also care about the ambiance of our town, which is why people come here. You know, as someone said, it looks like a prison, and that's a pretty close assessment. It's a very sterile, inhuman light. And these lights do not have shields. They have a house shield that's at the back of the light. They are going to have to just.
The lights that are being offered by Eversource.
The lights
have
are being,
only a
that's
backside
right,
shield.
that's right.
Yeah.
I have such faith in our energy committee. They've proven themselves. They're saving the town so much money by what they have taken on so far. They're very effective. They're very good at their research. They're very fast. And we will find this money in Pepperell. Not one taxpayer's rate went up, not one. And there are funds out there to pay for this. They may take a little time to get. And then the one last thing I will say, and I'll pass it on to someone else, is towns that went with lights that residents didn't like are now in cities. And it's Chicago, it's Seattle, but there are smaller towns too that we're doing a wonderful thing by coming in early to this when they had like 4,000 Kelvin, which is this white light. They're finding they have to retrofit, and it is costing them hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if we accept this free fixed that it can't be dimmed and so on from Eversource, it's not going to be very cheap to have those removed when we have to buy them out and then go with the light that we find we all prefer. And so I think, I hope I'm addressing your points, because you raised some really good points, both you, Margaret and Bob, and we can address those. And we're asking for a chance to do precisely that. Let's get it right the first time. And we have the design companies we can talk to. We can custom tailor this so that they reduce their rates to us. We have enough ARPA funds to get us started in this. And it is part of our infrastructure. As serious as sewer is, lighting is our infrastructure. Maybe we can help you out in the countryside if you feel like you have unsafe intersections. So I'll leave it there and pass it on to someone else.
Thank you, Terry. I mean, Kate, I'm sorry. I have a clarifying question for Terry. My sense here is that we don't need to take any action to have the Energy Committee move forward with their study. They can do that regardless of what happens, yes?
I would say that's correct.
Okay. So go to it, Energy Committee.
Well,
And
Andrew, I just want to.
I actually would like to continue onward, Tom, if I can. The other question that I have, Terry, is do we? My sense is that we should take Eversource up on their offer to install a shielded light, and that we should come back to this question once they've done that. My hope was that they would do that before this meeting, but they seem to have not done that. Am I correct on that?
I won't know until I speak with Eversource. I can only base the email I got versus what Jill said this evening.
Okay. So
may I just say that Margaret mentioned that it seemed rather naive for us to have an answer by August 1st. We're not proposing that we would have lights installed by August 1st. What we are proposing is that by August 1st, we would know exactly what the costs are for any option that we wanted to look at. Hopefully, within that time period, we would also have some other lights on display that the public could look at and have a voice in preferences. But that's it. By August 1st, then we have a much more robust, more complete understanding of what our options are and what they cost.
thanks. So Terry, my presumption is that we're not gonna move forward beyond the test light until we have a test light. Am I correct in that?
That is up to the board. That's not my decision. The board already voted to go ahead, so you would have to get the consensus of the board, I guess, to keep on holding in a holding pattern.
So I guess that's the motion we need to take tonight, is whether the board is willing to hold at least until we have a test light in place. Is there a motion to that effect, Margaret?
I'm just not sure we want it to be that specific. I agree that I would like to know more about what the shields can and can't do. And to give Eversource feedback that a problem that we asked them to solve, solved it for one person, but created it for another. And to ask about what they can do to assure us that adequate protection will be given for the people.
Well, it sounded to me from Jill's description that the shield that was installed was not the standard shield that they purchased and said they were going to put on all the lights. It was just a sort of jerry-rigged job that one trouble man put up there to try to address Jill's concern.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, basically, that I'd like to hear if they say that, and I also don't know when the offer goes off the table. I don't know if, I mean, I would imagine that they'd be hearing this from other towns too. And I would like to know that we could, at least if we can't change the, if we can't dramatically change the look of the bulbs, which I don't think we can do, if there would be significant things that we can do that would mediate the difficulty of them. And then I'm not sure, I don't know, you can decide if we need a consensus or not, but I think it's continuing dialogue with Eversource, in my point, in my opinion.
I'm just trying to hear emotion in that, Margaret.
Well, I guess I'd like to, I've done all the reading of all the articles I've been sent and everything. And I think it took Pepperell a while to get there. And that's what I'm concerned about. If we find in the summer that we could do this, I'm not sure I would feel comfortable making a decision about it if there's upfront a lot of money before it starts paying off. I would need to understand the process of the funding, because I don't feel that we can, Kate, you said that it didn't affect the taxpayers at all. I'd like to see proof of that in our situation.
Yeah,
So
that would be, yes, excuse me, that would be part of this study. We would answer all of your questions, or the Energy Committee would answer all of your questions and all of Bob's concerns as well. Because it is very important what you're both saying.
Could you do it in 2 months instead of 3 months?
I'm sorry?
I was wondering if it could be done in 2 months rather than 3 months, or how much information could be gathered.
Well,
They'll certainly be working as rapidly as they can. I think it's a little.
we can certainly try. We can certainly try. And, you know, in the meantime, we're talking about saving through the Eversource offer $5,000 a year. That works out to about $3 per person in Shelburne. So we're not talking about a lot of money compared to the $4 million budget that the town is dealing with. I think it's well worth looking at this in depth, looking at all aspects and figuring out how we can save the most money for the taxpayer.
Yeah, I mean, just from the finance committee perspective, the only thing I'd say is it may not individually be a lot of money, but you know, and when you add up all these $75,000 across all the different departments and all the different areas, that it can add up, right? So I think from a finance committee perspective, I think understanding the financial implication would be critical, because from here, sitting here, there's nothing in the budget for this, obviously. And so to the extent that we lose this offer from Eversource, we're gonna have to obviously factor into the budget, and it's not there. And I think before we can take any action different than what the select board has already approved, I just think we need to have some information on the financial impact.
I'm wondering if we can have a motion tonight to just continue this discussion to the next meeting so that we can answer 2 questions. One is, what does a shielded light look like? And second is, how long does Eversource's offer last? Because those seem to be the big questions on our minds in the very short term. And then we can, at that meeting, also address the questions that may remain about this study and how the board feels about that. But those seem to be like the 2 kind of minimum threshold questions that I think are right in front of us. Does that meet your agreement there, Bob and Margaret?
I think 2 weeks is reasonable. I'm not willing to agree by consensus to wait till August 1st, because I don't know enough about the.
We can address that at the next meeting. How about that?
but I would be open to discussing it again at our next select board meeting.
Great. Well, let's leave it there. Do we need a motion to that effect, Terry?
No, we don't need a motion. We just
No.
continue it.
We have our decision on the table and we're.
Thank
talking
you.
about that.
Okay, well, I'm gonna leave it there and I apologize, but I have to go to a work-related Zoom right now. So I'm gonna leave the rest of the agenda with you, Margaret, and let you take it forward. And if I can return, I will, but I may not be able to.
Okay.
Okay? Thanks a lot, folks.
Okay, I add my thanks to Andrew and to all of you who've taken the time to come here tonight and help us to think about this. At this point, we can move on to new business. And we have a request for an appointment to the Shelburne Cultural Council. Terry, do you have the details about that? I have it in my,
The resident is Deb Macara. She lives at 77 Main Street and she wishes to serve on the Shelburne Cultural Council. She's lived in Shelburne Falls for 20 years. And she does volunteer work for the Shelburne Visitor Center.
well, that sounds like someone who would be a good choice for the Cultural Council. Can I entertain a motion to appoint Deb Macara to the Shelburne Cultural Council?
I move that we appoint Deb Katara to the Shelburne Cultural Council.
Okay, thank you, Bob. A motion has been made, discussion. I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor, Bob,
Aye.
and I am aye. So she is accepted as appointed to the Cultural Council. Thank you. Okay, now we do have this in our paperwork, the request for ARPA funds to provide for a standby generator at the police municipal building. And we have
Yes.
information, yes,
This is something that we have been trying to get in place for some time since the police moved into the municipal building on Route 2. We have looked into numerous grant funding sources. The Emergency Management Director, Tom Williams, has really chased out a lot of funding sources, and there's really no grants available. And we then asked him to go look and get quotes. The quotes before you, Terry would have to tell me which ones are there. I have looked at them. But being at Bay State being treated for the lymphoma has been a little bit fuzzy at times for remembering all the exact details. But the component is that building, we are transitioning to be our emergency operations center during times of town crisis, emergencies, town storm-wide damage, snowstorms, anything that we need to operate an emergency operating center out of as a point of communication. And one of the big points is to have a standby power, because that's one of the things that's commonly lost during these storms. So what Terry has done and has presented, she'll be able to give us more detail, represents a lot of work and research, and I support what is recommended.
okay, thank you, Bob. Terry, we have the documents before us. Do you have anything you want to point out to us or highlight about it?
I think there've been at least 2 occasions where the municipal building has been without power and the police department has had to operate out of their cruisers for lack of electricity, internet. So Tom Williams presented a while back a proposal to install a hardwired generator that would kick on during power loss. And both Tom and Greg sought 3 quotes for the standby 3-phase generator. And the low bid is in the amount of $34,100. And that would be for Pachuric Electric Incorporated. So it would require a motion from the board to utilize $34,100 in ARPA funds and to award Pachuric Electric the bid for the installation and purchase of the generator.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Bob, you've already talked about it a little. Are we prepared to entertain a motion?
I certainly am.
Okay,
And I
go.
move that we award the bid to Pachuric Electric for $34,100 for installation of a 3-phase generator at the municipal complex on Route 2 for emergency standby power generator.
Okay, and I'll second
Bob,
that.
could I just add a slight amendment and
Sure.
to allocate said funds from the ARPA
Yes, and
account?
to allocate the funds from ARPA, the ARPA funding.
Okay, thank you. Do we need any further discussion or can we go ahead with a vote? Let's go ahead with a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And I say aye too. And the motion passes. Okay, thank you. And the last item of new business, the CDBG contract and amendment. Could you explain that a little bit to us, Terry? I'll look for it on my.
Sure. There's actually 2 pieces to this. One I sent this afternoon. There are 2 amendments to Bridge Street Phase 2 construction. One for the extension of the contract for Breezeway Farm Consulting through December 31st. And the second to extend the contract for GCG Associates, who are the engineer on the project, through December 31st, 2023. If you recall, the project was delayed a year because of piping shortage. So rather than it starting in the fall, it started this spring, and the original contract end date was June 30th of this year. So they're asking to extend through December 31st to accommodate paving, tree planting, and just grant closeout. So it would be 2 separate motions. One to approve the contract extension for Breezeway Farm, and the second to approve a contract extension for GCG Associates.
Okay, thank you, Terry. And this seemed like just things that need to be done to get the job done in town. And so I'll make a motion at first that we extend the contract with Breezeway Farms until December 31st, 2023, to allow for completion of the projects and grant closeout. Is
I
there?
will second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I think we understand that. Are you ready for a vote? All those in favor, please say aye. Bob?
Aye.
And Margaret is aye, so it passes. And the second motion is to, Terry, I can't, do we have a paper on it in our?
It was sent this afternoon. It
okay.
is GCG Associates. They are the engineering firm, and
Okay,
it's through December 31st contract extension.
okay, thank you. I move that we extend the engineering contract with, what are the letters again?
GCG.
GCG, extended to December 31st, 2023, to allow for the completion of the project. Second,
Second.
discussion? All those in favor, Bob,
Aye.
and I am I, so it passes. Is there any other business to bring to our attention? I'm not hearing none. The next meeting will be May 8th, 2023. Terry, correspondence?
Kate Whitaker and Tom Johnson dropped off a second petition with an additional 29 signatures, asking that the LED conversion be placed on hold until the Energy Committee has conducted a comprehensive comparative study. And she wanted that to be noted in this evening's record.
Okay, thank you. And I feel as though that was part of our discussion. So I hope that it will be felt that that was addressed. Okay, we come now to a time of public comment. Are there further public comments this evening? Okay. Hearing none, I will move to request a motion for adjournment,
Motion to adjourn.
and I'll second it. And we'll vote on it, Bob,
Aye.
and I'm I. And so that adjourns this meeting. And I thank everybody for your presence and for your contributions, and look forward to continuing to work together.